Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Munson at Midnight.
Woo!
This week's topic, we'll be covering the Bill of Rights. Before we get started, here's some context on the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights are the first 10 amendments added to the Constitution. It was written by James Madison in 1791 to put specific limitations on the power of the federal government. Its main purpose, though, was to appease the anti-federalists. Federalists argued that the Constitution didn't need a Bill of Rights because any right not explicitly given would go to the states. The Anti-Federalists argued that they needed one to safeguard individual liberties. In the end, the Anti-Federalists won out, and today we have the Bill of Rights. Please welcome our first guest, an expert on the First Amendment.
Yeah, I'm a genius or whatever on the First Amendment. Let's just get this crap over with.
I'm not sure you should be saying that on air.
First Amendment protects my right to say whatever I want from the government.
Well, what about profanity? Because I don't really like it when you curse at me.
Well, in Miller versus California, the Supreme Court decided that profanity is determined by their three-pronged test. It either has to be explicitly sexual, very offending to the common people of the area, or not taken seriously in any kind of literary, scientific, or artwork. And mine does not violate all three of those, so I'm allowed to say it.
Well, does that always apply? Like, what about places like schools?
The Supreme Court has defended the right to free speech by students from their schools, such as in Tinker versus Des Moines, where several students decided to protest the Vietnam War, and since they did it unobtrusively, the Supreme Court allowed it.
Well, we can't just have unlimited speech. There has to be some limit on what you can say.
The Supreme Court has previously ruled that students do have limited free speech, such as during the case of Morse versus Frederick, when a student held up a sign at a school rally that said, "Bong hits for Jesus." The Supreme Court ruled against that because they said that it was explicit profanity and did promote the use of drugs, and the school could curtail that.
Interesting. And obviously the First Amendment has a couple parts. Can you tell me a little bit more about the religious freedoms that it offers?
Yeah, in Engel versus Vitale, the Supreme Court helped to reinforce the religious aspects of its protection. Like it helped to protect these students who are being forced to say the prayer every day in their school. And when they sued, the Supreme Court overturned that and saying that the school could not even facilitate a non-denominational prayer.
Interesting. Well, thank you very much. Our next guest is here to talk about his love of the Second Amendment. So, what's your opinion on the Second Amendment?
This is the best amendment.
Why?
Because it gives me the right to bear arms.
Can you have those here? I thought you had to be in a militia to have those. There's this court case where this guy tried to bring a shotgun across state lines, and they ruled that the right to bear arms is specific to militias and not the individual.
Since the precedent set by D.C. versus Heller, Supreme Court sees it more as an individual right over a collective right, and militias don't matter anymore.
What do you mean precedent?
It is a case where the court decides how they are going to interpret a law in the Constitution.
Well, that's dumb. If they really want to make a change that big, they should just make an amendment.
That's literally what a precedent is.
That's dumb.
You're dumb!
No, come on.
Yo, man!
So what's the point of the Third Amendment?
Third Amendment, it protects you from having to let any soldiers live in your home during peacetime, so they can't just force themselves into your living space when you don't want them to be there.
Okay.
It's a really important amendment to protect your privacy.
What?
Yes. Did you? What?
So how often does something like that actually happen?
It doesn't really happen that often, but the Third Amendment has a lot of other real life implications. A lot of people believe that it kind of protects your right to privacy.
Like what? What do you mean?
Well, in Griswold versus Connecticut, it was used to protect couples.
Can I use this?
No, get out!
Anyway,
Sorry about that. In Griswold versus Connecticut, it was used to protect couples' privacies to buy contraceptives without government restriction. And later in Roe v. Wade, it was used as an important precedent to protect abortion and privacy in the United States.
interesting. Let's bring in our special guest to talk about the Fourth Amendment.
So is this being filmed or anything?
We brought you onto a TV show. You're on camera.
Okay, we'll have to talk about that one later.
Okay, sure. But before we start, what's in the case?
There's nothing in the case. Don't worry about it. Just don't worry about it.
Okay. Anyway, why is the Fourth Amendment so important?
The Fourth Amendment is like the most important amendment. It's what keeps the government out of your stuff, and it doesn't allow them to like search through your things without warrant. And like without it, the government could just like go through my briefcase and find my stuff.
All right. So, has the Supreme Court ever made any rulings around the Fourth Amendment?
Of course they have. In Callaghan versus Storm, they ruled that the police cannot enter your home without either a warrant or your explicit permission.
Well, what happened in that case?
So Callaghan was detained by the police on the condition that they wouldn't enter his household, but they did, and they searched it, and they found his firearms, and they took all of them, and they wouldn't give them back, which is a blatant disregard for what the Fourth Amendment says.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Let's move on to the Fifth Amendment.
Oh, we don't have enough time for that. Of course, case has already been scheduled here. We're just going to move on to that.
What? This is a court of law now? All right, let's do this.
I don't have a lawyer. I just got here.
Nope. We don't have the space for this in our segment, so let's just keep moving, please. Sir, you've been accused of discharging a firearm in a public place. How do you plead?
Seriously, don't I need a lawyer?
How do you plead, sir?
Not guilty?
Will the prosecution please present their case? Who will you bring to the stand?
We call the defendant to the stand. Sir, did you or did you not fire your firearm into the ceiling?
I plead the fifth.
Where were you on the night of November 29th, 2021?
I plead the fifth.
What does that mean? It means he has a constitutional right under the Fifth Amendment to not self-incriminate himself. You know, like the Miranda rights, you have the right to remain silent.
Okay. Well, that's fine. Even if we don't nail him now, we can just bring him back in a few years and get him with new evidence.
Actually, you can't do that either.
What? Why? Even with new incriminating evidence?
The Fifth Amendment protects him from double jeopardy, meaning that we can't come back and charge him again if he's been found not guilty, even if there is new evidence.
Objection! Objection, Your Honor!
What? What is going on now?
This man has a right to legal counsel in a prosecution.
And which right is that?
It's from the Sixth Amendment.
Aha! But the Sixth Amendment only guarantees protection to those in federal cases. This is a state court.
That's where you're wrong. In Gideon v. Wainwright, the Supreme Court set the precedent that it not only applied to federal courts, but state courts as well.
Oh, well, okay then.
Your Honor, I would like to present our second piece of evidence. Video surveillance of the defendant taking out his firearm and firing it into the ceiling himself.
Now, I know the Sixth Amendment gives you the right to a jury. Now, what has the jury decided?
Your Honor, we find the defendant guilty.
now a brief message from our sponsor, Pond 5 Law.
If you or a loved one has been discriminated against or hurt in the workplace, you might be entitled to substantial financial compensation. Due to the addition of the 7th Amendment, the United States now has a separate court system for civil suits. It also means you may be entitled to trial by jury. As long as your suit is over $20, we can get you substantial compensation. I'll get you the money you deserve. Call me and I'll win you the world.
I set your bail at $300 billion.
Objection! This is unjustly high bail and is prohibited against by the 8th Amendment.
Can you do that?
The Eighth Amendment states that a convict cannot receive unjustly high bail.
Fine. I set your bail at $1. Now for the sentencing. I sentence you to the guillotine.
Objection! This is cruel and unusual punishment. I demand a retrial.
Can you do that?
The Eighth Amendment also states that convicts cannot receive cruel and unusual punishment.
All right, fine. I sentence you to 100 days probation. Our next guest is here to talk about the 9th Amendment.
That court case actually took a big chunk out of our segment. You gotta speed this up.
Okay, all right, 9th Amendment, what is it?
Well, it basically guarantees the people all rights that aren't explicitly stated in the Bill of Rights, so that people can't just assume that because it's not in the Bill of Rights, you don't have it.
Okay, and that's important. Why?
Well, because it grants people, like the right to privacy, for instance, because in Roe v. Wade, they used it to rule that women could get abortions because they had a right to privacy from the state interfering with their business.
Okay, all right, that's interesting, but that's all the time we have today. I need you to go. Come on,
I got other things to say.
Come on, get me.
Is this our last one?
Yes.
Oh, thank God. All right, welcome our next guest to talk about the 10th Amendment. What is it?
So basically, the 10th Amendment states that any power is not directly given to the federal government or expressly forbidden from the states are given to the state.
Okay, and why is this important?
It essentially prevents the federal government from becoming too powerful and tyrannical.
All right, awesome. Thank you for tuning in, ladies and gentlemen. Good night.